Some footballers make the game look difficult. Some make it look easy. Zinedine Zidane made it look like art. Every touch felt effortless. Every turn looked graceful. Every pass seemed perfectly timed. He played football with a calmness few players have ever possessed. But beneath that elegance burned a fire that made him one of the fiercest competitors football has ever seen. Because the greatest contradiction in football history wasn't tactical. It was Zidane himself. Calm on the ball. Fire in the soul. Born in Marseille in 1972 to Algerian parents, Zidane grew up surrounded by hard work, pride, and family. Football wasn't simply a game. It was freedom. It was expression. It was opportunity. On the streets of La Castellane, the ball became an extension of his body. While others chased the game, Zidane seemed to slow it down. Even as a young player, coaches noticed something impossible to teach. He never appeared rushed. The match could be frantic. The crowd could be roaring. Opponents could be closing from every direction. Zidane remained calm. That calmness became his greatest weapon. His first touch. His balance. His vision. His famous roulette turn. Everything flowed together as though football obeyed his rhythm instead of its own. His talent carried him to Cannes before Bordeaux recognized they had discovered something extraordinary. France had produced gifted midfielders before. But nobody quite like this. He wasn't the quickest. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the loudest. He simply saw football differently. Where others saw pressure, Zidane saw space. Where others rushed, he paused. Where others forced passes, he waited for the perfect one. Watching him play felt less like sport, and more like watching an artist complete a masterpiece. Europe soon came calling. Juventus. One of football's greatest clubs. One of football's greatest demands. Italian football in the 1990s was unforgiving. Every mistake punished. Every weakness exposed. Every match a battle. It was the perfect place to discover whether Zidane's elegance could survive football's toughest stage. It didn't survive. It flourished. Serie A defenders tried to rush him. They tried to intimidate him. They tried to disrupt his rhythm. Nothing seemed to work. Because no matter how fast the game became, Zidane refused to play at anyone else's speed. He made the world's hardest league slow down. League titles followed. European finals followed. Individual honors followed. The football world had discovered its newest genius. But greatness isn't measured by club football alone. It is measured by what you do when your country asks everything of you. France. A nation holding its breath. A World Cup on home soil. Expectation unlike anything Zidane had ever experienced. The pressure was enormous. The entire country looked towards one man. Zinedine Zidane. The final arrived. Brazil stood on the other side. The greatest football nation on earth. The reigning world champions. If ever there was a stage made to overwhelm a player, this was it. But the bigger the occasion became, the calmer Zidane looked. A corner swung into the box. He rose above everyone. Header. Goal. Then another corner. Another leap. Another header. Another goal. France were champions of the world. And Zidane had delivered when football demanded everything. Because that's what separated him from so many great players. When the pressure increased, his football became even more beautiful. But there was another side to Zidane. A side people often forget. Until it appeared. The elegant artist could become a relentless competitor in an instant. He hated losing. He hated being bullied. He hated disrespect. The same fire that drove his greatness sometimes pushed him beyond the limit. That was the contradiction. The mystery. The brilliance of Zinedine Zidane. Calm on the ball. Fire in the soul. And the greatest chapters of his story were still to come. In 2001, Real Madrid made Zinedine Zidane the most expensive footballer in history. A transfer that shocked the football world. A transfer carrying impossible expectations. When clubs spend world record money, they expect world-class performances. Real Madrid weren't simply building a team. They were building the Galacticos. Figo, Raul, Roberto Carlos, later Ronaldo, David Beckham. A collection of superstars. Yet even among them, Zidane often looked like the finest footballer on the pitch. He didn't rely on speed. He didn't rely on strength. He relied on something much rarer. Control. Every touch had purpose. Every pass had meaning. Every movement slowed the game to his rhythm. Calm on the ball. Fire in the soul. Then came Glasgow. The Champions League final. Real Madrid against Bayer Leverkusen. The score was level. Half-time was approaching. Roberto Carlos lifted a hopeful ball high into the night sky. It drifted towards the edge of the penalty area. Most players would have taken a touch. Most players would have tried to keep the ball alive. Zinedine Zidane saw something nobody else did. Without hesitation, he struck the dropping ball first time. A left-footed volley. Perfectly clean. Perfectly balanced. Perfectly placed. The ball crashed into the top corner. Silence. Then disbelief. Then celebration. Many have called it the greatest goal ever scored in a Champions League final. Not because of the power. Not because of the technique. But because only one player in the stadium would even have attempted it. Calm on the ball. Fire in the soul. Years passed. More trophies followed. League titles. Champions League success. Individual honors. The admiration of teammates and opponents alike. Then came one final World Cup. Germany. 34 years old. Many believed Zidane's greatest days were behind him. They were wrong. Against Spain, he controlled the game. Against Portugal, he led France to the final. Then came Brazil. The reigning world champions. A team filled with legends. Ronaldo. Ronaldinho. Kaká. Adriano. Roberto Carlos. Yet one man owned the night. Every touch drew applause. Every turn embarrassed defenders. Every pass opened space. He glided through one of the greatest teams ever assembled. As though they weren't there. It wasn't just a great performance. It was a football masterclass. France reached another World Cup final. Once again. The biggest stage belonged to Zidane. Then came one of football's most unforgettable moments. The World Cup final. Italy. Extraordinary pressure. Millions watching around the world. Inside 7 minutes. Zidane stepped forward to take a penalty. Most players would choose power. Most players would choose safety. Zidane chose courage. A Panenka. The ball floated gently onto the crossbar, before bouncing over the line. One of the boldest penalties in football history. Only Zidane would attempt something so audacious. On football's biggest stage. Calm on the ball. Fire in the soul. Then, football witnessed the moment that would define headlines for years. Marco Materazzi spoke. Zidane reacted. One headbutt. One red card. One final walk past the World Cup trophy. It remains one of the most shocking moments the sport has ever seen. The greatest player on the pitch. Leaving the greatest stage. In the most unexpected way imaginable. Football has never stopped debating that moment. Should he have walked away? Should he have ignored it? Should he have stayed calm? Perhaps. But to understand that moment, you must understand the man. The same fire that drove his brilliance was the same fire that occasionally consumed him. It wasn't separate from his greatness. It was part of it. Calm on the ball. Fire in the soul. Football has produced players with greater pace, greater power, greater goal-scoring records. But football has rarely produced anyone who could control a match. Quite like Zinedine Zidane. He didn't chase the game. The game followed him. He didn't force greatness. He inspired it. Every first touch, every roulette, every impossible pass, every unforgettable performance. Football remembers the headbutt. It should also remember everything that came before it. The elegance, the vision, the leadership, the artistry, the moments that made millions fall in love with football. Because legends are never defined by one mistake. They're defined by a lifetime of greatness. Calm on the ball. Fire in the soul. That was Zinedine Zidane. And that is why he will always remain a true footballing icon. Not because he played the game differently, but because he made the world's hardest game look impossibly beautiful. What is your favorite Zinedine Zidane moment?